Hello everybody and welcome back to the TripleJump podcast. It's a video game podcast. My name is Ben.
My name is Peter.
Hello Peter, how are you?
Hello Ben, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Looking forward to what we're going to do today.
What?
Hello?
Hello?
What?
What was that?
I don't know. We should immediately start by saying we're recording this on Thursday, and at the rate the video game industry is moving this past week, there's a very good chance that we're going to be out of date by the time it releases on Saturday. Obviously, the Xbox Series S was leaked a couple of days ago and then confirmed officially, and then the Xbox Series X was also confirmed in terms of price and when you can pre-order from. We're going to talk all about that at the end of the show, predictably in the big discussion. But there's also a very, very good chance that we might get some PlayStation 5 news as now, while we're recording. So who even knows what's going to happen?
I think they're going to announce the GameCube 2 tomorrow as well.
Can't wait for that one.
Yeah.
The game dodecahedron.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That'd be a really complicated one. Practically roll.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
That'd be fun.
Really exciting. As we said, this is a video game show. It's not about the athletic competition, just so you're aware. We do this show every week, and it's really good. So good, in fact, that we get sponsored by a very real video game company each and every week. Peter has the ad read for us for this week.
Ben, would you like to learn a new skill?
Always.
We're in troubling times. Unfortunately, some people's jobs are on the line, which is a horrible thing. But don't worry, because you can actually go out and learn a new practical, handy skill that you can then offer as a service as a workman or woman.
Okay.
So just head on down to a new celebrity-run roofing school. And you too can become a roofer under the tutelage of world-famous skateboarder Tony Hawk. That's right. Just head on down to Tony Hawk's Pro Slater school, and you too can learn how to make a roof.
Outstanding. That sounds brilliantly bespoke. I had no interest that he was so interested in that, you know? I wasn't aware.
He loves it. He's all about it, Tony Hawk. That's what he's been doing. You know, you asked in the Quipscope what he's doing now.
Yeah, Tony Hawk, I wonder what he's up to.
He's roofing.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the time.
I've got to assume then that once I have completed my course at Tony Hawk's Pro Slater, there is some sort of secondary education I can pursue with the same organization to sort of further my skills.
Right.
Is it Tony Hawk's Pro Slater 2?
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, it's actually it's a recent. They've released a very recent package in about a week or so ago where you do it all in one go. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Slater 1 and 2.
Wow, that sounds affordable.
Re-rafted.
Yes. Okay. Where can I sign up?
By going to www.tonyhawksproslater1 and 2 rerafted.com/sign up now today.com.
Okay. Do we have a special code to enter to get any money off? Or
No.
No?
No. They wouldn't let us have one of those.
Just spreading awareness.
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yep. That's it.
Cool. Well, that sounds great. Let's move on then to our first question.
It's a lie!
No! Oh, we got so far this week.
Oh, I got you. You nearly thought it was real that time.
I really did. I was just going to get on with the show.
Yeah?
Oh, my goodness me. Well, really, at least I wasn't the only one fooled, right? Look at all these gobsmacked faces, presumably.
Oh, look at them all.
Who knows? No, we're not sponsored by Tony Hawk's Pro Slater 1 and 2 Re-Rafted Edition. We are, of course, sponsored by our wonderful patrons each and every week. That's patreon.com/Team TripleJump, where for as little as $1 per month, that's 25 cents or about 20 British pennies per week. You can not only support us financially, but you can also ask questions for the show. That's patreon.com/Team TripleJump. Get access to the questions post on a Tuesday, put together the document on a Wednesday, record on a Thursday. I've made that joke before, that Craig David joke, but it's
a good one.
Never gets old, just like Craig David.
Yeah, true.
He's looked the same for 25
He's immortal,
years.
Man.
He is immortal. So if you'd like to be immortal too, why not consider visiting patreon.com/Team TripleJump? No, where are we walking?
No. Nearly. You caught it. Maybe we should be walking just along a rooftop.
Yeah, I like that.
Tony Hawk's pro-slated roof.
Yeah, let's do it. You can really see the craftsmanship in that pro-slated roof.
Yeah, look at all those slates. They've been professionally slated. Tony Hawk's professional slater.
It's weird that there's a big eyeball with a spike through it.
Yeah.
On the roof. Yeah. I don't know what that's about, but
it's true.
Sorry, just like
Dan Scott, who says, "Hello again, boys. Have you ever suffered from post-game blues? By which I mean, have you ever finished a game that you became obsessed with to the point that starting a new game was impossible because all video games just seem inferior to the game you just fell in love with? Maybe you've even tried and subsequently given the boot to some excellent games because they just didn't compare. I ask this because I just finished Persona 4 Golden on Steam, and now nothing else really appeals to me as I take time to reflect on what I've just finished. Love you both."
Love you too, Dan.
We love you too, Dan.
Thank you so much.
I can honestly say I've never truly had this. I've certainly had the post-game blues in the sense that you get, like, in the same way when you finish a movie or a book or something like that, and you're like, oh, I feel like I've lost 1,000 friends now, all those characters that I kind of felt attached to, and now they're gone because I've finished it. Mm-hmm. So I've certainly had that many times. But in terms of actually having played a game that I enjoyed so much that everything else didn't seem that good by comparison, or unappealing at least, I don't think I've ever really had that experience. I've heard other people talk about it, but no, it's a bit of a boring answer, but my answer is no,
Peter
I'm afraid.
Austin hates video games.
Yeah, Peter Austin has never enjoyed a video game enough that it's made other games look bad.
Oh, man. Okay, what about a slight rephrase where when you finished a game, it had such a lasting effect on you that you just sort of needed to take a minute and not play games for a bit? Yeah, whether that be emotionally draining or sort of a sense of pride and accomplishment.
I think again though, like I don't get any, I don't feel like I get that much fatigue after playing a game in terms of like before moving on to the next. Like, okay, it's not that I've not played excellent games that even, they feel better than others in comparison, but it's never stopped me from wanting to move on straight away to something else. And likewise, I've certainly played games that are harrowing or eye-opening or make you reflect on certain things, but it doesn't tend to then make me not want to start a new game for a while. If I want to play a game, I'll just play a game. It might be that I don't have time to play a new game going forward in for the rest of that week or whatever, but it's not because of the effect of the previous game.
I see.
Yeah, so
oh wow,
not really. What about you?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not strongman Peter Austin, and I'm not immune to the charms of video games all the time. So Persona 4 Golden actually is a very good example because that is definitely one that for me I got completely obsessed with and sort of fell in love with all those characters and that world. And I had my in-game daily routine of studying and then going to hang out with my in-game best girl of choice, and then doing some late night work at the bar and leveling up various social links and all that kind of stuff. And I loved that game. Oh God, sorry, I wasn't actually getting choked up there. I just had a hiccup. Sounded like it really got the better of me, reminiscing, but it's not. Okay, so shut up.
Yeah.
No, but Persona 4 Golden's fantastic, and that was when I finished it. I did feel like I had a big hole in my life. I was like, oh man, the way you put it about finishing a book and feeling like you lost 1,000 friends. That's what that felt like.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, it's gone now. It's done. And if I play it again, I already know all these people. It'll be like some cruel Groundhog Day thing where I get to start from scratch and they're all getting to know me for the first time, but I already know everything about them and it just feels wrong, So that one was a bummer. Again, I've got sort of, I think I've discussed it before. I want to call it video game amnesia, where if it was literally 2 years ago or longer, I sort of just forget about everything that I experienced from a game.
Right.
I'll need to be reminded of the game before I can speak on it, because I just sort of compartmentalize it in my brain, and it just goes away in a little box, and I forget about it. God of War was definitely one that when I finished it, I was really kind of sad, because I don't know what I was expecting from that game. This is the 2018 one. But there are all these different Norse realms that you visit, and I sort of got the impression from the setup that you would visit all of them, which you don't, obviously setting itself up for a sequel, and you also don't see all of the famous Norse gods, again, setting itself up for a sequel. And I think in my heart, I knew that I wasn't going to see all these places, but my brain was telling me, no, you'll be fine. Like, just keep going. There's loads. You know, you're going to see all of your favorite people and go to all of these amazing places. This game is going to run you thousands of hours. And then, you know, it finished, and I was really bummed out because it's so good, and I just wanted to keep playing and experiencing more of that world. Oblivion was another one. Mm-hmm. Where I finished Oblivion, or at least I played a lot of Oblivion, and then, you know, after I think I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, I would leave it, and after a while I'd just think, oh man, I missed that game.
Yeah, no, of course.
Really want to get back in there.
But do these feelings of missing a game or feeling bummed out that it's over, did they make you not play a new game for a while? Is my point, because I could also list a lot of games that gave me a similar feeling, but I don't think they kind of put me off starting anything else or made other things look bad in comparison.
Well, Persona 4 Golden was definitely that. Less so Oblivion. You know, obviously I went on to play other stuff, but then it lingered in my heart. Afterwards. God of War being the big open game that it is, or sort of open linear, however you want to describe it, that left a big hole, and I didn't really want to play anything after that, because I think there were a lot of open world games released. Well, there just are all the time, and sometimes you just need a little break afterwards just because of that open world fatigue. A great way to remedy that, though, because Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games, and I loved all the characters in that, and I was obsessed with that game. A brilliant way to avoid sort of leaving a game behind and feeling very sad and not wanting to play anything else is to force yourself to get trophies, because going through that game on the hardest difficulty nearly killed me. It was the worst thing. So when I finished it, I was like, oh, thank God I am done with this game. Whereas if I'd just finished my playthrough and then left it, I would have probably been really quite sad. And I was quite sad because it was such a brilliant experience.
And on the other hand as well, that's the good thing about trophies, is not just to make you so mad that it's so hard now that you're glad that it's over, but also when you do your initial, like your first completion of a story, if there are trophies to go back and play, maybe not some of the really hard ones that are going to frustrate you, it's just like, it's just like bonus content. It's like, oh well, I might be done, but at least I can go back either with a new game plus or a level select, and I've got to defeat 50 people with an air dash, or I've got to find all of the secret pigeon droppings or whatever.
We'll go get those pigeon droppings.
Yeah, it's just bonus content, which kind of, that almost goes without saying. But yeah, that's the good thing about trophies and in-game achievements and things like that, or unlockables, and it gives you a reason to go back straight away if you really want to, without having to just rehash the same story exactly as you've just done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, in Dan's case, I don't think people look at Steam achievements as or look on them as fondly as Xbox achievements or PlayStation trophies. So, and also the Persona 4 Golden Platinum is horrible, so best of luck with that if you decide to do it.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Oh, well, there we go. It's time for a cutting edge segment, though. Rather than dwell on the past of old games that we miss, let's look to the future with something new and fresh and exciting. Not run this by you yet, Ben, but I call it What We Playin'.
What? Is that a question?
Yeah. What We Playin'.
It's What We Play in time. Peter, what we playing?
We play in all kinds of things on the consoles and PCs, as you might expect. I have, on stream, I've been continuing with my Crash Bandicoot run in preparation for Crash 4. I've non-100%ed Crash 2, and I'm moving on now. I was going to try and 100% it, but God, it was slow going. It's the game I know the least well, so just moving on to Crash 3, which I know and enjoy from start to finish. So looking forward to that. But outside of streaming, I've mostly just been playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Remastered. It's not officially called that, but yeah, the remake, the remaster. It's a remake.
It's a remake, yeah.
It is, yeah. And really, really enjoying that game. It's just, as I said in the Quipscope, some people are calling it like the best remake or remaster ever made, which I don't think it is in those broad terms. But I do think that really, like, in terms of a Tony Hawk's remake, it's kind of perfect in that, that game, that genre or that style of game doesn't have like a super, super high bar to hit. I think once you've got the actual skating controls and movement and muscle memory nailed down, then all you really need to do after that is, do a nice, pretty version of all the levels. They've hidden a few extra objectives and collectibles around. They've added a few quality of life touches. They've done all that, and I don't think it was that they could have gone far wrong. And they've released pretty much a perfect Tony Hawk's remake, I would say. Amazing. I think all I would maybe do is really add a lot more to the Creator Skater, so it's more like the character creation stuff you see in like an RPG or something like that, like an open world fantasy game with sliders and color pickers and, well, it does have color pickers, but lots of sliders and things like that, which it doesn't have. But it doesn't really matter because, for one thing, you can't see your character's face for most of the time when you're playing that game. I think that's the only thing where they could have maybe taken it a step further. But the creator park is pretty great. And it just plays exactly as you want it to. So I don't really see what else they could have done. And hats off to them, really.
Amazing. So yeah. Tony Hawk presumably is absolutely thrilled about this.
Yes, I'm sure, because it wasn't going so well, his branded games before this.
No.
I'm sure he's a happy man. I've not seen actually because I think he does. He's got like a Twitter and he's got a bit of a social media presence. So yeah. I maybe should see what he's been saying and whether he's kind of commented on how well it's been received.
What's the guy who invented like most of the skate tricks? Because there's two styles, right? There's what are they called with skating? There's the one that Tony does, right, which is sort of a bit more straight-laced and technical, and then there's sort of street skating tricky boys.
Right. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know the terminology. Basically, it was one of the original skaters, and he had, I think, the lowest rating in the original games, despite being the best at doing tricks in real life. And I watched a video before this game came out where they all sort of reunited, all of them, in their late 40s, early 50s or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just seemed so nice. And he just went up to Tony and, like, on camera was just saying, I just want to thank you so much for all of this. You changed all of our lives with this game by including us. And, just thanks so much. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
That's nice stuff. Because this, goodness
From the guy who was given the worst stats.
Yeah, they did make a joke about that. He said, what did you do to annoy the developers for them to do that to you? But yeah, this game changed the lives, clearly, of the skaters involved, and now it stands a chance to do the same thing to the new skaters involved.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because there are a whole bunch of new, fresh faces in there, so good luck to those people.
Amazing.
And it may well also kind of excite young people, like players, into like trying out skating for themselves, much like the game did originally.
Yeah.
I think it was responsible for a lot of people wanting to learn how to skate.
Absolutely.
In the 90s. So maybe it'll happen all over again.
I'm gonna wait, not just because there's so much to play at the moment, and it turns out recent experience has taught me that I'm absolutely horrible at Tony Hawk's games.
Right.
But I'm gonna wait until it's £20 in Argos, and then I'm going to recreate a moment from my childhood that's it really sticks out in my head, where I went to Argos and I'd saved up £20 and I bought Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 for myself for the PlayStation 1, and I remember that. I remember doing. Do you think
it will ever be £20?
I mean, yeah, eventually. Doesn't matter when. I'm going to make it happen. I mean, what's going to happen first, Peter? Is the game going to get to £20 or is Argos going to go out of business?
Well, me and you might be able to do a Tony Hawk's style 50-year-old men reunion thing.
Oh, yeah.
Me and you as old men. Mm-hmm. And at that time, maybe finally, the game will be worth £20. So me and you will be able to sort of get together on camera, and you'll be able to say to each other, Oh, Ben, Peter, I just want to thank you for everything you did. You changed my life doing videos with me back in the 2010s. Let's go to Argos and buy Tony Hawk's.
I'm not making it to 50, finally £20. Peter. I'm not making it to 50.
Not unless you start skating or something.
No, well, that's it. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll start skating. We'll see. We'll see. Well, it sounds great.
Yeah, it really is. I'm enjoying it a lot. I've been playing multiplayer as well, local multiplayer. That's fun. But what about you, Ben? What have you been playing? If there is so much to play right now, tell me.
Well, there is, because I would love to play some 1 and 2. But there's also Peril on Gorgon, the new expansion DLC for the Outer Worlds has just come out. I've got a code for it. I don't know when I'm going to play that. Borderlands 3 DLC is out on Friday. Don't know when I'm going to play that. There's just too much. There's just too much going on currently. I have been playing a bit more Avengers. I have finished the story mode, and as I was a bit concerned last week, yes, absolutely, several of the story missions take place in those bland multiplayer environments with lots of objectives to do, and there's just some voiceover over the top while you go through it, which is so sad, because the missions that are proper single-player bespoke narrative missions are full of set pieces, and they're really exciting, and it's so good. It's really good fun. So I've finished it now, and I've just been dipping into a few of the multiplayer missions, and I feel like the matchmaking is terrible, because now literally all I have available to me are these bland multiplayer missions, where they're in an open environment, or they're in a lab or a bunker, and they all contain the same objectives over and over again, and it's just sort of the gameplay loop of getting gear and changing your gear and leveling up your gear and leveling up your selected superhero, which for me is Black Widow, because I find her the best to play as and the most enjoyable to play as. Right. And it really does feel like a grind, and you do have an option to just join a quick game, so people who are just looking for someone else to join their team, or you can just start a mission and wait. But I have literally never had more than one other human player with me at a time. I've never been able to find a third player ever. It just doesn't matchmake me with anyone, and I don't know if I'm alone in that. I gave it a Google and I couldn't find anything, but the keywords were revealing some unhelpful search results, so I don't know if it's just difficult to Google something that specific. But I've never found a third person. I imagine it would be way better, because the missions have power ratings based on the level of your gear, because of course they do, and you can quite easily get away with doing ones that you are not the right level for if you're doing it with someone who is an actual player, because the AI is dumber than a sack of rocks.
Oh god.
And there's some objectives where you have to basically do domination from Call of Duty, where there's 3 points and you have to stand on them to capture them, but then they can be captured by the enemy, And you get better gear if you get a full 5-star rating for a mission, again, because of course you do. And if it's sort of first to 100% wins, and if the enemy gets 25%, then you lose a star. And when you're doing it on your own with a complement of AI Avengers, surprisingly, they don't go for the objectives. So if it says, one of the aim is trying to hack into the system or get me out of their system, and you're losing one of the command points, you have to go sort it out. And then if they go attack another one while you're doing that, you've lost it, basically, because your AI partners aren't doing it. It's just, it's sitting now, I don't know where it's sitting on Metacritic, actually. It's sitting lower. Last time I checked, it was on 69, which is obviously very nice. But also, I think, accurately reflects the game, because it's very, very pretty, and it's very competent, but it's confused about what it wants to be, and it doesn't do, as I've said before, it doesn't do what it's ripping off from other games as well as those games do it, which is a real shame. The only reason I've sort of carried on playing is because I'm sort of a slave to the loop of grinding in games. I'm not against doing that. It's why I finished Wolfenstein, but also I'm just desperately waiting for a new game to come along that I can play instead. So I will probably stop playing that once I've got the Outer Worlds DLC and things. And, the nature of the game is that it will continue to evolve, and they'll add more missions and stuff like that, but they will all, even if they have a little cutscene in them, they will all take the form and the shape of these missions with the same objectives, maybe in just slightly different environments. And that's what you're going to get from Avengers, and that's a real shame.
Yeah, well,
a real shame.
It is a shame, because I know that many people were really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And we're hoping for a very different experience. So
yeah. Bit of a bummer. Very quickly, also played Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning. You can go and watch the Quipscope all about my thoughts on that. I think someone put it very well in a review tagline that I read when I was just having a glance at the Wikipedia, where they said that it doesn't so much feel like a remaster as it does just an opportunity to play it on current gen consoles. Because they haven't done anything to it. It's exactly the same. The load times aren't great. I streamed it last night at the time of recording, and I had a bug where someone I needed to speak to was invisible, and I couldn't talk to them. So I had to reload it. It didn't work, and then I had to reload the checkpoint, and then they were there. So that's sort of the level of quality we're speaking about with this remaster. Nothing against the original game. It's still very good, but THQ Nordic have really THQ Nordicked it.
Yes. They've Nordicked it,
really
as usual.
But there we go. That's what I've been playing.
Oh, well, thanks for the insights.
You're welcome.
Would you like to read question 2 for us?
Certainly. This is from Brian Hart. Hey, gents. I hope you and your loved ones are doing well. The C-virus pandemic has become an important cultural moment, changing the way we see things around the world. As another recent cultural moment, the war in Iraq seemed to shift FPS settings to the Middle East, and villains were often terrorists. In what ways do you think that the pandemic will change video game tropes in the future?
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
It's a good question. It's a good point. It certainly is a big cultural moment. It will, without a doubt, be in history textbooks and things in not so many years' time. But I wonder. Well, I can see it. I can see certain aspects of it making it into games, and other parts not so much. So I do wonder when masks will start showing up as standard in games, like maybe either just like NPCs wearing them,
cosmetics,
and well, so you say cosmetics. Like, there's actually, I forgot to mention this in my Quipscope. There is a mask available in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Character Creator.
Nice. There's one in Borderlands 3. They patched them in.
Oh yeah, because they told us about them, didn't they? Yeah. It's under the facial hair selector.
That's great. It's true. I do get ID'd when I'm buying alcohol, and I wear my mask because it hides my beard.
Yeah. It hides blonde boy with beard.
Yes.
You're just blonde
boy
at that
boy,
point.
Literally. You have young eyes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now let me buy my sad juice.
Please. So, I won't be surprised if, depending on when video games are set, in what year they're supposed to be set. But maybe that there'll be sort of masks thrown in onto NPCs and things like that, just to kind of make it look like it actually does look at the moment in 2020. But whether it will properly affect video game narratives, whether the C virus will become a video game villain in some way, in the same way that terrorists have done in FPS games, I don't know about that. I can see maybe there being some interesting indie games about lockdown, that are just like set in one room, or just things like that. I can definitely see quirky little things coming out from that whole situation, but I don't think that the C virus will have as much of an effect as the war in Iraq seemed to have, in terms of as Brian says, sending a lot of FPS games to the Middle East, having terrorist villains. I think video games already, the video game world already has its own diseases and pandemics and world-ending things. We've got cordyceps and the T virus and things like that. So,
and the C virus.
And the C virus, in fact, yeah. So it's probably not going to... It's something that video game developers have already been playing with, really, over the years. So in some ways, it's nothing new to them.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways, yes. In some ways, not so much.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. We're already seeing it affecting some popular culture. Masks are already featured in a lot of adverts now. KFC finally dropped the finger-licking good slogan.
Did they?
Yeah, like as recently as a few weeks ago, which is a shockingly slow turn of events from their perspective. But you're right. Games are escapism. Those set in sort of a contemporary, realistic setting. You're right, like certain indie games and stuff like that. They may start to include elements that are true to real life, but it's also worth remembering that games take a very long time to make, and most games in production now will probably be either too far along to include them, or they might just want to again sort of treat games as the escapist media that they are. We don't necessarily want to play games to be devastated. The Last of Us Part 2. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's worth experiencing. But, if you had to play Fall Guys and it was socially distanced, for example, that would be absurd. It just wouldn't... It just doesn't always translate. So while we totally get your point, Brian, about how the Iraq War was sort of co-opted by... video games and other popular media, TV shows, movies, that kind of stuff. You may well see some elements, but there's a good chance that actually games will not pretend that this doesn't exist so much as they don't include it because real life is depressing enough.
Yeah, I remember a month or so into lockdown, some of the soap operas were hitting the headlines because they were kind of running out of episodes, or they were going to have to do episodes every other day rather than every day in order to make it last. And back then, there wasn't actually as much of a wear your face coverings thing going on in the UK. There was very much a case of wash your hands and things like that. But I remember reading that certain soap operas were thinking, when they sort of from this point on, if and when they start making new episodes, they were only going to possibly allude to coronavirus, if that, maybe not even at all, rather than have, suddenly start setting up a load of storylines and having people walking around distancing and stuff. However, that was, as I say, early on in lockdown in the UK, and now there is, I would say, a lot more pressure on people and companies to wear face coverings, for example. So I do wonder whether now that people on TV soaps are going to have to be wearing masks when they're wandering around their fake streets and things, just for continuity, or whether, as you say, because it's a sort of a kind of an escapist thing, are they going to be now set in an alternate world where there isn't a C virus problem and they're not going to be wearing masks?
I think they are actually acknowledging it. I don't watch soaps, but I had some family visit a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying, I don't know which one, but they were saying how they are now wearing masks and socially distancing in the world. So that's...
I can see them doing that now. I think early on they were saying they didn't want to address it that much, but I think it would actually be a bad move PR-wise to sort of ignore it or pretend it wasn't happening now.
And also it'd be really hard to shoot too.
Of course.
Really hard to shoot that. So unless they, keep all the actors and their families locked to the set.
Yeah. Whereas you can do that with video games if you wanted to. If you wanted to do a world without masks and distancing, obviously you have to be safe in the actual mocap process or voice acting process. But, within the digital world, you can have people kissing and licking fingers and things, if you like.
Yeah, finger licking good. Delicious. Okay, it's time to move on to something very, very strange. Are you... Oh, no, I haven't got my thing. Are you ready? Have you got paper yet?
I have. Yeah, I had paper last week.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, it's time for Weird News. It's Weird News time. Welcome to Weird News. Peter, you have some strange video game news for me, Christopher?
I do. It was sent to me via DM by Milburn at Milburn on Twitter. We know that one.
We do know that one.
And also, it was tweeted to both you and me by Mark Hopkins at That Smiling Robot on Twitter. This is according to... I thought I had this open in a tab, but apparently I've closed it. Let me just reopen it. There we go.
Okie dokie.
Here we go. It's according to IGN, who now want me to...
Whitelist them?
Agree to cookies. I consent. Programmer has made 1993's Doom playable on a pregnancy test.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's a demon.
It's wonderful. In fact, the subtitle of the article is "It's a Doom Guy."
Oh, I don't think that's as good.
This is written by Adam Bankhurst, as I say, on IGN.com. Foon Turing, I don't know how that first name is pronounced, Foone. Foon Turing is a California-based programmer and has made 1993's Doom playable on a pregnancy test, truly taking the Will It Run Doom challenge to another level entirely. They took to Twitter to share their progress in making video games playable on a pregnancy test, including Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up and the Dancing Stick Bug. But did I say video games? They were making videos playable on a pregnancy test. But the clips of it running videos of Doom and the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim were what caught the eye of many in the gaming world. So this is how it started, is that I saw this at the time. He was running a video of Doom playing on a pregnancy test, like digital display, where it says, "You're pregnant," or whatever. And he said in the tweet, "This is not me playing Doom on the screen. This is me just running a video of Doom footage." But immediately people took to news sites and were retweeting it and stuff, saying, "Oh my god, a guy's got Doom running on a pregnancy test." However, he then did actually manage to do it. So it's important to note that they did not replace the display and microcontroller, so the only part of the original tester is in the shell. I don't know what any of that means. However, getting Doom running and playable on a 128 by 32 pixel monochrome display at 1 bpp is still an impressive feat. So it's a monochrome display, meaning that it's just black, and then it can either have a pixel that's lit up or not. So you can just imagine what it actually looks like. And of course, you can click the link in the link dump under the video version of this podcast to have a look yourself. Foon's work is another in the legend of the Will It Run Doom challenge that has seen the classic first-person shooter become playable in Minecraft, on a microwave, a Leapfrog kids toy, and even Chandler's laptop from Season 2, Episode 8 of Friends from 1995. Right.
Wow.
Okay. So it's you have to see it to believe it, but there is footage of Doom running on a pregnancy test digital display, and hats off to the person who managed to get it going.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What will they think of next?
I have no idea. Ben,
Yeah.
News me.
I have a news here from PC Gamer. This was written by Christopher Livingston. And the title of this article reads, "This Crusader Kings 3 player ate the Pope."
Right.
Are you ready?
Yes.
In a grand and sprawling strategy like Crusader Kings 3, it's important to have a personal goal along with the never-ending list of general objectives you want to accomplish. For Crusader Kings enthusiast and Reddit member Zach7062, that personal goal came very quickly upon beginning the game. His goal was to eat the Pope. When I saw Zach7062's post on Reddit stating that he had conquered every holy site, defeated 3 separate crusades, and reformed the Norse religions to include cannibalism just so he could eat the Pope, well, I had to know more, so I reached out for comment. Please stop autoplaying videos. Zach told me via Reddit message he had heard in Crusader Kings 3 you could reform the pagan faiths, one of Zach's favourite features from CK2, which he's played about 800 hours of.
Wow.
Zach began his first game of Crusader Kings 3 in 867 and settled on Norse ruler Halfdan Whiteshirt, Jarl of Jorvik, which of course we know, Peter, is... York. Wanting to see what kind of options I'd have for reforming the faith, Zach told me, I popped open the faith screen to check out what tenets were available. As I scrolled, an option caught my eye: ritual cannibalism. One of my favourite achievements in CK2 was Holy Smoke, sacrifice another religion's head as Norse or Aztec pagan. It was then, before a single day had ticked over, that I knew what I must do. It was my destiny. I was going to eat the Pope. Playing as Halfdan, Zach told me, he conquered Mercia and Wessex, followed by parts of Ireland and all of Scotland. Halfdan died, but Zach took over playing as his son Ragnar, who finished unifying the British Isles. The Pope, uneaten at that point, launched a crusade for England, but due to some strategic alliances, marrying every single female in my family to random pagan leaders, as Zach put it, Ragnar managed to hold back the crusade while stocking his dungeon with Catholic prisoners. Taking over as Ragnar's son, Bjorn, Zach decided to burn those Catholics, which generated hundreds and hundreds of piety points, thanks to the human sacrifice tenet. Bjorn then began conquering holy sites to reform the Norse faith and develop a particular appetite. I had heard that stress can cause people to do strange things, he said. So through the power of many, many mental breakdowns and eating because I'm sad, I was given the option to request special food.
Oh.
With Bjorn now a cannibal and after defending against another crusade, the Norsemen sacked Rome and acquired a very special prisoner with a very large hat. When you've imprisoned someone, you can execute them, and if you're a cannibal, you can both execute and eat them. As Zach put it, Pope was back on the menu, boys. According to Zach, it took him about 100 in-game years and about 15 real-world hours to accomplish his goal of consuming the Pope. As you can see in the screenshot above, beheading and devouring Pope Gregorius VI had a few effects. Notably, it lowered his stress by 40 points. I also love the line, "As I have a fair reason, no one will think me a tyrant." I imagine a bunch of citizens hearing the news that Bjorn had decapitated and eaten the Pope and just sort of nodding, yeah, that sounds fair. And finally, eating the Pope comes with a 20% chance of becoming ill. Bjorn did, in fact, get sick after dining on Pope meat. And he almost died, Zach said, but such is the price for salvation.
Absolutely. Wow. It looks like a very versatile game. I saw a silly playthrough of it the other day on YouTube of a guy who was just, deliberately trying to do silly, strange things like that. Yeah. But I like that aspect to it, that if someone has slighted you, or if they're your enemy, or if you have due diplomatic cause, you can do things like imprison people or execute people and not be seen as a tyrant for doing it. But I love the idea that just because you're at war with the Pope, it makes it okay to eat him, and people won't think it's tyrannical of you.
I do love the single-minded goal, going through 3 generations of this Viking family just to eat the Pope. That is really fun. That's so Brilliant. Strange. What a game.
Yeah.
So there
Fantastic.
We go. Very weird.
Very, very weird news there. It's question 3 time now. This is from Like a Glove, who says, Small Pete and Speedy Ben, I've had a nostalgic week getting hold of an N64 emulator and playing some of my old favourite games. However, However, I noted that some games I remember being godly are just okayly, is what it says. Okay-dly. I think much of my nostalgia comes from playing with my mates. For example, I loved Super Smash Bros. And GoldenEye on N64 based upon my memories with my cousin, and SmackDown Know Your Role and Conker's Bad Fur Day on my many all-nighters with one of my mates, Joel. However, playing solo just doesn't feel the same. Are there any games you remember fondly based upon experiences with friends, yet they don't stick up to the memories, he says, playing back solo? Much love, Glove.
Thank you,
Glove.
I tend not to revisit too many of my old favourites, and the sort of games that we used to play in multiplayer growing up, like Time Splitters and what's it called, Guitar Hero, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, those kinds of games. And honestly, I've never really revisited those. And when we did revisit Time Splitters, we played it together. But I can well imagine that if I played Time Splitters by myself, I'd probably feel a bit sad and empty, because it's not really something I've ever played by myself. So I think it's largely multiplayer-centric games. But I do have a few contemporary examples. Both Dark Souls and Bloodborne. I do not get the same enjoyment playing those alone as I do in co-op with friends, because so many of my memories are written in my mind and in the minds of my friends as us all coming together with our monstrously designed characters to overcome bosses and threats and trying everything we can to defeat this stupid, unfair boss, and then finally doing it.
Yeah.
And doing it alone is not only a different kind of challenge, but it's also just, it for me, just makes the world feel a little less magical.
Right.
The same thing goes for Call of Duty 4's campaign. There was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered that was on PlayStation Plus a while ago, and I used to play the multiplayer of that religiously back in the day, so much so that when it came out on Plus, I think it was about a year ago, I didn't even want to touch the single player, because I think all I could think of was the multiplayer, and it kind of made me sad because I played so much of it. And I was playing multiplayer with friends as well. But the idea of playing that game solo just made me sort of yearn for playing the multiplayer with some friends.
Yeah. No, I definitely... My first thought was actually Time Splitters as well. But I have played that game solo and co-op. And it's interesting because if you play... well, of course, there's not just the co-op mode. There's actually multiplayer, deathmatch modes and things like that. But even just talking about the story, if you play the co-op campaign, it's actually missing a few like little bits and bobs from the single player. There are supposed to be moments in the single player version where Cortez ends up on his own, or there's like certain scripted bits where your companion in that level will be like saying stuff and pointing things out to you, which they don't do when your friend is in control of that character. So you arguably you lose a little piece of a little portion of content in playing on co-op mode. However, there's so much more fun to be had in that game in multiplayer mode that I think I would much rather play that with friends than single player. And again, it's got bots for offline, well not offline, but non split screen multiplayer. But I would rather play deathmatch with a friend and some bots than just a bunch of bots. But Time Splitters aside, I have to agree with Like a Glove in terms of GoldenEye. I think that game has aged really badly.
Yes.
And a lot of people haven't been back to play it since the 90s and have it, they hold it in very high regard. But just try picking up GoldenEye and playing it, partly from just a mechanical point of view. It's not easy. But also, it's another one that I think relies on having friends to be as fun as you remember it. But one that's I discovered slightly more recently was when I played Halo 1 on stream. I played the campaign through. And although I've played Halo 1 and 3 and a bit of 2 on solo many times, I've also played them on co-op mode for the campaign. And yeah, I very much discovered playing Halo 1 back that, man, this is way more fun with friends. Like, so much more fun with a buddy by your side, because I don't know, I made my way through the story. I was trying to talk to the audience about what was going on, and I just kind of felt like it felt a bit like a means to an end, really. Like I was aiming for the ending rather than enjoying the moment. And the one other one I've just thought of as well is that I think I've said in the past that some of my old school friends used to have Terraria servers. Like on the occasional like sort of summer, we would set up a server and play Terraria and build a world from scratch. And then it would kind of fizzle out. We'd go and play different things. And then we do the same thing like 6 months, 12 months later, start from scratch again. And that's a game that I've never really been able to enjoy on my own, but had loads of fun with when playing with friends. So that's a big one for me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. I feel the same way about Minecraft, actually. I don't think I can. Yeah. You can play it alone, but it's nowhere near as fun.
Yeah, I suppose it is a lot more fun with friends. I'm quite happy in Minecraft solo as well, but yeah, it's definitely better with friends there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we very much agree with Like a Glove that is indeed a phenomenon that can happen with a lot of games.
Absolutely.
Good.
Well, it's time to move on to that there gigantic discussion.
It's time to grab a prop.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's big discussion time!
Big discussion!
Big discussion time, everyone. My goodness, what a huge discussion. A huge thank you to everybody who submitted questions about the Xbox Series S. Obviously, since then, we've also had confirmation of the Xbox Series X's price too. So we're going to get into that. Here's a little blurb before we get to the various questions we have from the BBC. So obviously this is already outdated and may be even more outdated by the time this podcast comes out. Mm-hmm. Microsoft has confirmed that it will release a second next-generation console after a leak prompted it to unveil the Xbox Series S. It said that the machine would be the smallest Xbox ever. The firm's UK, US, and French Twitter accounts are among those to have subsequently confirmed local launch dates of the 10th of November. Company watchers have said the advertised price is significantly lower than had been expected. Microsoft has said the machine is set to cost £250, $299, and €249. It is £50 more than the lowest priced version of the firm's existing Xbox One range. The company has yet to give a launch date or price for the larger and presumably more powerful Xbox Series X. Allow me to help you, the BBC. It is $499 ERP. Is what it says there in the tweet that they put out.
Estimated retail price, I guess.
Yes. So $499 for the Xbox Series X, $299, this is dollars, for the Xbox Series S, both releasing on the 10th of November, and pre-orders start from the 22nd of September. So there we go. That is the news that we have. What do you think, Peter?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, it's. I was saying to you before we started recording, actually, that it's difficult to truly understand where the value is, like what, to what extent it's value for money with getting the S, which is cheaper but like has less powerful components inside, versus getting the X, which is more expensive but is more powerful, has a disc slot. I don't understand necessarily the specs of these consoles particularly well. I've always made my decision partly on price in terms of when I didn't buy the PS3, but mostly in terms of exclusives. I think it's worth noting that we've got Xbox offering the option for a discless system, which the PlayStation are also doing, of course. I don't know. The thing that bothers me, or worries me, I guess, is with the Series S, is the number one, I think it looks a bit strange with the big sort of circular dotty grill on the side. It looks like a speaker or something. But on top of that, I feel like Microsoft probably have I think the Xbox 360's reputation precedes it in terms of the red ring of death and hardware issues and, a relatively low life expectancy. And I just wonder whether we might be facing the same thing with a console that is like over 50% smaller than the Series X, and supposed to be able to run roughly like similar kinds of software, albeit to a lower grade, I'm sure. But I just wonder if it looks a bit too small and compact, and it's like trying to run your PC games on a laptop, where it's like the laptop is designed so that, yeah, technically it can run your high-end PC games, but it's going to be going the whole time.
Right.
So I'm sure they've tested it, and maybe I'm being a bit pessimistic, but it looks very small and compact, and I worry about that. But then, I guess at least not having to read a disc, that probably helps. If it's just running it digitally, that's I'm sure that makes it slightly easier on the hardware. But yeah, I have to see it to believe it, that it's that it's going to run perfectly well and be good value for money.
You would hope so. I've been playing Avengers, obviously, recently, and that game, when you are looking at the map with your various missions available, my PS4 Pro is just screaming
God.
in agony.
Yeah.
And I'm so sick of that. It's so loud. And that's just... There is an element of, well, maybe you should take apart your console and dust it. But there's also an element of, actually, no, I shouldn't have to do that. Maybe you should optimize your games a bit better. So I'm really hoping this new generation, on all counts, the games are just better optimized and they just run better.
Yeah.
That's what I really like. I'm really excited, not necessarily to get myself an Xbox Series S, but that it's finally happening. Stuff is
Price
actually
wars.
happening. We're gonna find out what's going on. I am honestly very surprised by how cheap the Series S is, and I'm also sort of kind of surprised by how expensive the Series X is. I think they knew clearly that the Series X was going to be an expensive beast, and that they sort of had to offer an alternative that was going to be cheaper. Now, I have no idea where the PS5 physical edition and digital edition is going to slot in here. But presumably the headache that Sony is now going to have is communicating to people that the reason their digital version isn't as cheap as the Series S, and presumably Microsoft is going to be taking a big hit on these consoles as well to get especially the Series S that cheap. The reason it's definitely not going to be that cheap is because both the disc and discless versions of the PS5 are on par in terms of power. It's just that one of them doesn't have a disc drive, and you can just choose your preference. So that's going to be difficult for them to communicate. You've also got to bear in mind that there's the vast number of people who have purchased PlayStation 4s and are already in the PlayStation ecosystem just want a place to play FIFA and Call of Duty. And if they see a way into the next generation, no matter how limited that may be in the long term, and even if people would really like the Series X, but it is out their price range, so they're going to get the Series S, that cheaper alternative is definitely, just by virtue of existing, going to be enough to tempt a lot of people to that console.
It's true.
So I think it might be an uphill battle for Sony to get their messaging straight. And that's before you even get into the details of Game Pass and all the extra value that Xbox are offering. They're coming at this very aggressively. And that's exciting because it means PlayStation are going to have to counter. And that's just better for everyone. So we will see how it plays out, hopefully not before this podcast releases. But either way, we do have some questions here to get into it a bit more. The first is from Trevor Price. With the Xbox Series S price being £250, it will be popular. However, it is slower and will for sure hold back the Series X when in multiplayer lobbies, etc. I hadn't thought of this, actually.
That's true. God, yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
Because there is almost certainly a power disparity between the two, which there won't be between the disc and discless PS5, there will certainly be drawbacks to playing competitively, you would imagine, between the Series S and the Series X. It may be negligible, but it might not be. But equally, as I said, some people literally just want a games console. They want to get onto the next generation, and this is the cheapest way for them to do it. So they probably just wouldn't care, really, or even notice.
You're right that I agree that it's cheaper. The Series S has a cheaper price tag than I expected, and as a result, I think that the actual disparity between the two products is bigger than I expected. So I wonder whether I don't. It's just difficult to work out to what extent one is more powerful than the other based on the price, based on purely the actual act of putting the thing together on the production line. That obviously affects the price of a product. So yeah, it'll be interesting to actually see how they stack up next to each other in terms of load times and things like that, and whether that will affect multiplayer lobbies. People with a Series X that they've paid $499 for, waiting around for a game to load because there are other people with a Series S playing whose session hasn't loaded in yet. It's an interesting point for sure.
You have to believe that they've taken this into consideration already. But as you said, we won't be able to believe it until we see it running. We're not going to be able to compare the two until we have them. But and I'm going to say this a lot, it's always going to come back to, for a lot of people, it's always just going to come back to the price.
Yeah.
People will see that and think, I can get onto the next generation now and save $200. And I don't really care if it loads slower. I just want to still be able to play my sports games. I still want to be able to play my shooters. I don't really care. I might not even have a 4K TV. I just want to be there and still be able to buy the games that I want.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it might sort of not divide the audience in terms of set them off against each other, but it will. It's almost like there will be two groups. I think there's a. While there is that kind of I just want to play FIFA kind of group that will be very much enticed by the Series S, I think a lot of other people who are really in it for like high-end gaming experiences will look at the Series S and say, no thank you, that's really not for me. Like, that's what I feel about it. I mean, I'm probably almost certainly not going to be swapping over to Xbox at all unless we get a price for PlayStation this week, which is £800. But if I look at that as an Xbox player, I can't see myself ever wanting to have a Series S, just knowing that it's presumably nowhere near as powerful and not going to give you as good an experience. So it's almost like there's going to be two completely different groups of Xbox players as a result of this, which is an interesting thing, I guess.
There may well be. There may well be. Do you want to get the next question?
Yes, we've got a question from Richard Major who says, looks like the new Xbox Series consoles are going to cost $25 and $35 per month each. That will include a monthly payment for the console and Game Pass.
Yes. So Microsoft has offered this before with their other consoles, or so I'm led to believe when I looked into this. So again, it makes sense that there's a payment plan. And again, if they talk this up, and they really, really get the message across loud and clear with the value of Game Pass, and that's going to be part of this monthly, subscription or whatever, or monthly payment scheme, then that could also tempt in a lot of people. It will almost certainly end up costing more in the long run than buying it outright, because that's just how payment plans work. But not everyone can afford to drop $299 on something.
No.
Sometimes you have to cater to that audience, and that may well end up being sort of a master stroke of genius here, especially when already offering the cheapest next-gen console.
Yeah. I think that's another thing. It's not just a case of seeing that the Series S is $299 and thinking, as you say, I just want to play FIFA and COD, I'm going to get that. But seeing that it's $25 a month, and with that you get the hardware and a subscription to Game Pass. That is actually a very, very exciting prospect, I think, for a lot of people. Certainly if PlayStation were offering something like that for a lighter version of the PS5 with access to a huge catalogue of video games, that probably would actually be the thing that made me consider getting the lighter version. Still don't think I ever would, but that it's a really nice way of spreading the cost. $25 a month, that's like some people pay that on their phone plan. When they're paying off a handset, and it's the same thing. You're just paying off the console. I think that is definitely going to hook a lot of people in. So Sony really need to actually think quite carefully about what they reveal as a price. And I think everyone knows that Microsoft and Sony have been sitting waiting for who's going to blink first, and who's going to reveal their price. And so Microsoft went and did it. And now Sony have really got to answer to that. If you're going to play that game and sit and wait and see what happens, then when it finally does happen and your opponent blinks first, you really have to answer properly then at that point and impress people, I think. So it would be nice to see them try and undercut this.
Well, let's talk about our temptation towards a digital console with this question from Brian Cahill. How much cheaper would an all-digital console have to be for you to consider it? I love having a physical copy of games, but a saving of $200 dues is quite a temptation. So I want to sort of twist this slightly, not only answer the question, but also talk about where we think the PS5 should land price-wise, including the digital version. And if that price would be tempting. Yeah.
I mean, I think I don't know. I've never been good at gauging the price of consoles. I think that at least not like based on what Xbox have revealed, I think that the PS5 could actually get away with just matching the Series X price. I don't think they necessarily have to undercut it at this point based on the fact they've got their exclusives on top of that. On the other hand, though, they're not offering a Game Pass style thing, so maybe they do still have to try and undercut if they can. But how much cheaper would a digital only version have to be for me? I don't know. I mean, I also like having physical copies, and obviously the disc tray version of a PS5 will allow us to still download digital stuff, so you get the best of both worlds. I'm not sure that I would consider. That's a really tricky one for me because I guess if I was going to consider it, it would have to be like $200 cheaper or something like that. But even then, that's only because it would almost be silly for me not to go for that kind of saving and still have access to all the same games and the same hardware. But I don't know. That's a really tough one for me because I do love having physical copies of stuff. And I also, not just in terms of having it and having it on a shelf, but also knowing that I've got it there so that if there are, connectivity issues when, I want to just play a game or, you get home and you can just plug in and play kind of thing, rather than some of the issues you can have with digital games that they might eventually be taken off the store, for example, even though you own the game. If you don't have it on your console, then you can no longer download it eventually after some years.
So, license agreements expire and games get taken down all the time, and it happens a lot. But I totally agree. I think if the PS5 can price match the Series X for the disc version, then they'll be laughing. Because as we both said, that the Series X is a little more expensive than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be quite a lot under $499, and I was originally almost worried that the PS5 was going to hit $499. So it may end up subverting our expectations and go the other way, and the PS5 ends up being over $500. But if it is, I feel like they just need to eat that cost. They can't do that. They need to also be aggressive and competitive here. In terms of the discless one, I mean, a lot of people have said that it would probably be a $50 saving, but I think here again, to be competitive, they should probably split the difference and maybe go $399, so they're between the price of the cheapest, Xbox Series console and the most expensive, and then there's a $100 saving then there, and then again, properly hammer home on the marketing that you are getting the same power as the full as the disc version. You're just sacrificing access to a disc, and then that option is there. Because with the Series S, some of the stuff we haven't spoken about is it's super cheap. And yes, Game Pass is an option, but the hard drive isn't very big. It's like 500 and something gigabytes. you're not going to, as much as it seems silly to say it out loud, you're not going to be able to put your discs in it. Their Xbox Series consoles are backwards compatible, but if you have a big back catalogue of games on disc, you're not going to be able to use them with the Series S. That's just not.
Can't watch your Blu-rays on it either, which is what I do on my PlayStation. You know,
can't do that either. You'll obviously be able to stream things in 4K, and that's a big appeal. And Game Pass is going to be an option, but you will be removing stuff. I know that they've got xCloud coming soon as well, so you're going to be able to stream all these games all over the place. But they're really going to have to make sure that works properly, because my only experience with streaming games has been with PlayStation Now, and it's not good. It's not stable, and a lot of people who perhaps are locked out of getting a Series X because of being able to afford it may not have the best internet as well. There's a good chance that's also an issue for them. So that might be a problem. But I'm not going to get a digital version of a console regardless of the price. I am dead set on getting the most feature complete version of the PlayStation 5 when it comes out, regardless of price. And I just however, if the digital version is super cheap, then I would just appreciate that as a fantastic alternative for people who want that. But I don't want that personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why I say it would have to be stupidly cheap for me to consider getting it. It's not going to be $200 cheaper just for removing a disc tray, but I think if it was, then maybe at that point I might just think, okay, look, I can save $200 for the same console. But the only reason that is the difference with the Xbox is, of course, because the Series S is has much cheaper hardware in it and is not as powerful. Whereas, as we've said, the PlayStation version is the same console, just without a disc tray. So it's not going to be that much cheaper, and therefore I'm not going to be getting it, I don't think.
Yeah. Last question, Peter.
Yes, last question. This is from Ernie Arrowsmith, our resident Lord of the Rings character. Pricing sounds pretty reasonable for the specs, but will there be anything to play on it? Says Ernie.
That's a great point. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I don't think it can be understated just how huge of a loss it is for Xbox to not have Halo on launch, because their launch lineup is not looking good. And I'm not saying that just as a person who's going to get a PlayStation, because we don't even know what the launch lineup is yet. It's rumored that we'll get Miles Morales and Demon's Souls, and I mean, just those two games is a pretty damn good launch lineup just in and of themselves. That looks good. But we've seen how successful the PS4 was, or is, I should say, and the launch lineup for that was not great. Killzone Shadowfall was the only really big game there, and that was fine, and it went on to be a generation that's had so many incredible exclusive games, and to have two strong first-party games right out the gate with Ratchet and Clank following not too far behind would be amazing. And presumably, that is currently what we're waiting for in terms of a formal announcement from PlayStation, is that we haven't seen Demon's Souls running properly yet. We've just seen a trailer. We haven't seen any sort of extended gameplay of that. Same goes for Miles Morales. We've just seen trailers for them. So you've got to assume that when they do announce it, they may well go all PlayStation on us and do a big sort of reveal event showing off all the launch games and confirming them, and then the price and that kind of stuff. So that might be what the delay is here, is waiting for the right time to show that. The right time is definitely very soon, which is extremely exciting. But again, it comes back to, with Xbox, as much as we can be forlorn that Halo isn't there, some people are just going to see $299 and just be all over that. And that's the end of the discussion for them.
Yeah, no, that's true. But the interesting thing with launch titles, certainly with this upcoming generation, probably more so than ever before, although backwards compatibility has been a thing in the past with various consoles, I think you almost have to consider with the launch titles of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S, that any late 2020 games that come out on the current generation will either have a next-gen version that will come out, or will be just playable in terms of backwards compatibility. And so, those games being so fresh when the consoles drop, they almost count as launch titles as well in and of themselves. So things like Crash, Cyberpunk, I'm trying to think what else is due out. Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
Yeah. I know they're not exclusives, but
I don't know. Has that been delayed?
Dogs.
I don't know.
I think it's still on course. It was at the Ubisoft Forward event the other day. But
speaking of which, sorry to cut you off very quickly. There's another one of those tonight, so this will be even more out of date. This podcast by the time it releases.
Yeah. So if you factor those in as well, whether they're exclusives or not, that kind of contributes to each console's launch lineup in a sense. So that kind of. That's a factor, but you're right in terms of like the true, launch titles of the next generation. Yeah, Microsoft will be feeling very sad that they've lost Halo for launch. I honestly I'm struggling to actually remember what else there is at
Medium
launch for Xbox. Oh yeah, that's right.
That's sort of the only one that jumps to mind because that was the one that interested me. But that's not going to sell consoles.
No.
But $299. So $299. Does it matter? I'd argue it does. It definitely it definitely matters to probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, unless they're already, much like we are embedded in the PlayStation ecosystem. If they're already embedded in the Xbox ecosystem, the decision is made. You're going to stay where you are, and that's absolutely fine. But to people who are tempted by value, whether that be financial or just the quality of the games you're going to be able to play on those platforms, be they exclusive or not, this will almost certainly matter. That there's no Halo there, and that their launch lineup perhaps is looking a little soft now. Again, we don't know what PlayStation's is, but if Miles Morales and Demon's Souls are in there, I would argue that a strong launch lineup that would make.
Yeah, and there's different kinds of how value can affect someone's decision as well. So with the 360 and the PS3, it wasn't so much that one of them was seemed very cheap. It was that the other one to me seemed overpriced. Mm-hmm. Whereas here what we're dealing with is I don't think anything seems. I guess the Series X is a bit more than we expected, but I don't think it's ludicrous. And if the PS5 matches the Series X price, again, not stupidly overpriced, whereas we're dealing with, when you look at the Series S, as you say, it's something that's cheaper than expected, which is a rare thing. It feels like we've not had that since like the PS1 era, really, for a console. Like, no one's gone, wow, that's really cheap for a long time with a console. So, it will be very interesting to see who buys what and for what reason.
It is sort of unprecedented, though, the value proposition of the Series S, and it will be really interesting to see how it plays out. We were talking about it in our office group chat, the TripleJump work chat, on our instant messaging service, about how Microsoft is almost certainly taking a big hit on the price of the Series S, even though it's, obviously cheaper to manufacture than the Series X. They're definitely taking a hit on it. And their gamble here is to just sort of get as many people on Game Pass as possible, when surely you would imagine that traditional software sales probably brings in more money per unit than someone who's just subscribed to Game Pass and can play anything. So it's super good value for the consumer, but at the same time, it's a really interesting gambit from Microsoft, who are playing this, not only this sort of untested approach, but also a really long game here in trying to get as many people onto Game Pass as possible. When, again, you've got to assume that just selling individual copies of Assassin's Creed Valhalla is going to bring in more money in the short term.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I guess... it depends. What's the deal with the monthly thing? Is that, do you eventually pay off the console and then it gets cheaper, or are you just going to forever be paying $35 a month?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't think you're just going to be paying that forever. But the price of Game Pass per month is not $35. I imagine after that it will just roll on to the cost of Game Pass, and then you'll just
You would have thought so, but it depends whether, as you say, sometimes you pay a bit more for finance, so there's a little bit more money maybe to be made back there if ultimately you're paying more. But you have to think, what is the value of lots of people paying, medium amounts of money every month versus certain people sinking or spending a big lump sum on a big game, but then maybe not buying a game for the next month or so. It's all kind of, you got to weigh it all up in terms of frequency of payment as much as like the size of each payment as well.
Yeah.
Because some people don't buy a game for months at a time. So
yeah, it's fascinating. We'll see how this all shakes out. Hopefully, we'll hear from PlayStation very soon. It's got to be in the next couple of weeks. It Surely. Has to be. If they're releasing,
they're running out of time.
They are. If they're releasing in a couple of months, we need to know about it.
Yeah.
And they were almost certainly waiting for Xbox to go first. So now they have, and hopefully in the next fortnight we will know where PlayStation stands. But so much has happened recently that this sort of, I don't want to call it a console race, but it's got way more interesting to watch with the aggressive pricing of the Series S. And if Microsoft can nail the marketing, they stand a really good chance of doing extremely well at launch. And PlayStation has to answer. And that is just good for the consumer all around. So we will see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there we go. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching the YouTube version. Alternatively, you can reach out to us and find us in the following places.
Yes, all of our content goes out on YouTube and Twitch. That's youtube.com and twitch.tv/Team TripleJump. We do videos on YouTube and we stream on both. And when we stream on both, we're modded by Lord Brotovich, Cecil Prumps, Mads Didactyl, and Trowling Badger. Thank you all. We've got social media at twitter.com and facebook.com/Team TripleJump. Facebook looked after by Luke Eldon, who continues to do an excellent job. Patreon is, we've got all kinds of rewards available over there. Patreon.com/Team TripleJump. We've got a Discord, bit.ly/Team TripleJump. That's modded by Jack and Joe. We have got the podcast available in audio form at play.acast.com/s/TripleJump. There's the website, triplej.mup, that's triplejU.mp. If you put a little /shop on the end of that, you will get to the store, where we sell interesting merchandise, including a swimming costume. What? And finally, triplej.mup/VODs is where you can get redirected to our VODs channel on YouTube, where all of our live stream VODs get uploaded.
Absolutely. We had a bit of an issue with our website the past couple of weeks,
but
it looks like it might be live again now. So if it's being funny for you, please bear with us. We've had all sorts of problems with our hosting, so we've just been trying to sort that out. But it should be sorted now. Fingers crossed. You can follow us on Instagram. Peter is at @ThatPeterAustin and also at @ThatPeterAustin on Twitter. I'm just on Twitter at @confused_dude. We do lists every Tuesday and Thursday. Streams every Monday, Thursday and Friday. Thursday being the joint stream, displays it on YouTube. Monday and Friday being solo Twitch streams. Worst Games Ever is fortnightly, Friday for patrons, Sunday for everyone else. Podcast is every Saturday, and we do different content every other week to sort of dot around. Please leave a review on iTunes or your platform of choice. It helps something to do with algorithms. All sorts of stuff going out this week. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and also Kingdom of Amalur Quipscope videos, where you can see some gameplay and listen to our full impressions of each. Those are on the channel. There's a brand new What It Means to Me, all about Shadow of the Colossus, featuring our good friend from Gearbox Software, Patrick Fenn. So if you want to go give that a watch, please do. It's very good. And later on today, at the time of release, there is a brand new ranked video all about Nintendo franchises. We're ranking every single exclusive Nintendo franchise from worst to best. It's a good one. It's a good one. It's a really good one, and it will be live later today, so please go and watch that too. So much to look forward to.
Indeed. So, it sounded like there was a comma there, so I was waiting for so much to look forward to. But then it all goes rubbish next week when the channel's closing down.
Yeah, we're closing down the channel.
That's it. No, don't worry, it's not happening.
It's all sorted.
so much to look forward to and ongoing in the coming weeks too. So stick with us on all of our things that were just mentioned. And that leaves probably just enough time for me to do another ad read of our sponsor. Let me just... yes. Tony Hawk, world famous celebrity for reasons that don't worry about why he's famous. He is doing a special school where you can learn how to make a roof. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Slater re-rafted 1 and 2.
Fantastic.
I guess like a roof is kind of ramp-shaped.
Yes. I'm fairly sure you can go on roofs in some Tony Hawk's games.
You can. Yeah, definitely. It's where the secret tape is in some levels.
Well, there you are. Look at that. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Please look after yourselves, and we will see you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.